Hello and welcome to week 5 of School English Explained. I'm Debbie, and this course comes from Coventry Education Service, and this week we're looking at grammar. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, here we go then. There's my email address. If you've got any questions, and as we're coming towards the end of term, obviously there'll be more courses up and running for next term. Might be worth you having a look online or giving the Adult Education Service a call. There's their phone number to find out what else is available that might be of use to you. So this session will be about 45 minutes long. First things first then, how did you get on with the stuff you did at home last week? How did you find it? The punctuation was last week. Some of what we looked at will be touched upon again because punctuation and grammar do kind of sit together. So hopefully some of that will answer those questions. But if you do need anything clarified or any further, please do email me. So this week we're going to think about vocabulary associated with grammar, types of words, which is a big part of that, and your children will be taught about types of words in school, so it's good to have an idea about those. Quite a few, so it can get a bit tricky. We're going to think about root words, openers, suffixes and prefixes, think about the tenses, prepositions, subjunctives, and the SPAG test, the spelling, punctuation and grammar test that the children take as part of their SATs at the end of year 2 and year 6. It's quite a bit to it. It's quite chunky today because there's quite a bit to know. So just take a moment to think, where would you put yourself currently? Are you really hot on grammar? Is this something you've studied a lot before? Would you like to know a bit more? Is this new to you? Just have a think. Just to remind you about the task images, then there's a few on this presentation. Opportunities to have a think. Please feel free to pause me, and if you need more time to think or to just for yourself, but just might help with your own understanding. So then, let's start with the sentence. I did say some of this would reflect back onto the punctuation stuff we looked at last week, and we did talk about subjects and verbs. So in a sentence has to have a subject and a verb. It's generally one idea, a simple sentence that children start off with. Simple sentences will have a subject, so the personal thing it's happening to, and the thing that happens, okay? The doing word, okay? And as you can see there in green, the verbs are the doing or being word, okay? And we talk about being because we think about to be is actually a verb in itself, okay? And we look at that a bit further on. But it's also a doing word. It could be an action, it could be an emotion. And it's important to remember that as well. And the subject, as we say in red there, the thing the sentence is about. It could be a person, it could be an animal, it could be an object. Sentences can be simple, one subject, one verb, one idea. They can be compound, which is where we've got joined together, two simple sentences joined together, or they can be complex, and they can be short or long. So there's a lot of variety there, and we look into that a bit more now. I'm going to read this to you. I just want you to listen, okay? Close your eyes if you like, just have a listen to this. This sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5-word sentences are fine, but several together become monotonous. Listen to what is happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Okay, I kind of asked you to close your eyes because I think sometimes it's easy to concentrate on one sentence if we shut the others out. But again, that whole idea of it's boring, it's robotic, it doesn't make me want to listen to any more, it makes me nod off, it doesn't make me concentrate. Okay, so the idea is, as children become more proficient and more capable at writing, we encourage them to vary the length of their sentences. Listen to the middle one. Close your eyes again. Now listen. I vary the sentence length and I create music. Music. The writing sings. It has a pleasant rhythm, a lilt, a harmony. I use short sentences and I use sentences of medium length. And sometimes when I'm certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of a crescendo, the roll of the drums, the crash of the cymbals, sounds that say, listen to this, it is important. So, write with a combination of short, medium and long sentences. Create a sound that pleases the reader's ear. Don't just write words. like music. Quite lengthy, but I think that's a really lovely piece, and you'll have this resource sent out to you just to kind of explain the difference. You know, it is like music. Our ears love to lap it up if there's variety in there, if it's interesting. If it's boring, there's no point. I've switched off. Okay. And obviously the way somebody reads something out or the way somebody reads something in their head is quite a personal thing. But if you can invite them and entice them with what you've got on the page, that really helps. And you're far more likely to get someone to read further on into a story or a book or a piece of work if there's some interest in there. And grammar helps with all of those things. Nouns. Okay, one of the first ones generally taught. A noun is the name. Okay, so it's a name of a person, place, or thing, is the way we normally talk about it. Okay, so for instance, if you have a look at the yellow backed poster there, we've got some lists of persons. So girl, boy. We've got mom, dad, the proper nouns. Grandpa, places, school, home, playground, zoo. America, animals, dogs, bees, lizards, things, a book, a shoe, a flower, a pencil. Okay. And it asks you there, and you could take a moment to think of a noun to add to each category. Can you think of a person noun, a place noun, an animal noun, and a noun, a thing? Have a go. Now, within that, as well as nouns, we have proper nouns, okay? And these are the ones that have a capital letter at the beginning, okay? So these are the ones that always begin with a capital letter, okay? It's a person's name, the name of a place, as in a country or an area or an organisation, and they tend to have capital letters, okay? We also give capital letters to days of the week as well. Not to forget, that's quite important to months of the year. There are other words, and when we write titles, but that's different to a sentence. But there are places where we as standard use a capital letter, and proper nouns is one of those. Okay, then moving on, a pronoun takes the place of a noun. Okay, so instead of saying Sarah went shopping, Sarah bought a dress, Sarah caught the bus home, Sarah lost a purse on the way home. Again, very samey, very repetitive. We might start off with Sarah went shopping. She bought a dress. And sort of take it that way, just to try and make it more interesting and give more information. Look at the sentence here, look, at the bottom. Joe saw Jill and he waved at her. And if you look at the way I've colour coded it, we've got Joe and he in purple and Jill and her in green. Okay, so the pronouns he took the place of Joe's name, and the pronoun her took the place of Jill's name. Okay, so Joe saw Jill and he waved at her. Now we use some of the knowledge we've already got, so we know which names are more likely to be girls or boys' names. Again, that's not a rule, but it gives us some idea, and the ordering as well. Joe saw Jill and he waved at her. We talked about Joe first, the he's first. That kind of gives us an idea that it's probably Joe we're talking about. Makes it more interesting. Joe saw Jill and Joe waved at Jill. It just becomes repetitive again. So it's just about making our writing interesting. Okay. And also some of these names are quite long, and if you have to write them 8, 9 letter names every time, it can be quite tricky. Okay, looking at this sheet, the post there, thinking about pronouns, it looks a bit tricky there, but just to run you through to give you some idea. When we look at the first person, we're talking about yourself, I. Okay, so I went to the shops. Okay. If we're talking about the possessive adjective for the first person, we'll be talking about my things. Okay, quite simple when you think about it. So if this is yours, this is mine. It's quite simple when we use it, but actually in terms of possessive, it's working them out. So if in the second person, we're talking about someone else, so you, for instance. Okay, in the third person, we're talking about he and she. Okay, and there's also plurals on here as well, which helps. Now, a possessive adjective is an adjective used to show possession, ownership, okay, of a belonging. So it might be your coat, her shoes, our house, their bus, okay. Possessive pronoun stands alone, but can be used to replace a noun, okay. And reflexive pronouns are used in a sentence where the subject and the object are the same and refers back to the personal thing, back to the noun. Okay, themself, itself, myself. Okay. Verbs then. A verb is a word which describes the action in a sentence, the thing that is actually being done. Okay, so if you look at the top one there, we've got I play football. So play in yellow is the thing that is done, the actual action. The next one, skip, they skip quickly. It's the action is to skip. The next one, the action is to eat. We eat spaghetti. Sometimes people get a bit caught up and think that a doing word has to be a physical doing in terms of running, climbing, swimming, jumping. But those are the very obvious ones. And we quite often start with those with children because we can get them to do them themselves and we can give them very visual pictures as prompts. But it's any action at all. And we've got here, Bob is 7 today, and is actually the action word there because it's to be. Okay, we come on to that a bit more in a moment. Okay, the action being what the subject does. Okay, so Sally likes cats. Sally is a subject and she likes, it's what she does. Okay, she's not throwing, she's not jumping, she's not skipping, she's liking. Okay, so that's a verb in itself. Jim drives a truck. And you can pull it apart. What is the action? So you can say, what does Jim do? Drive. So there's our verb. Okay. Children play games. What do children do? They play. Okay. So you can help children to draw it out with the questions you use. Again, you open questions there. Okay. Going on a little bit more. Looking at these verbs now and those sheets at the bottom. The verbs here. So Sam played on his bike. What did Sam do? He played. Yeah. I have black hair. What did you do? You have, to be, to have. Yeah. My mum is a dinner lady. She is a dinner lady. Yeah. Okay. And we look at this a little bit more. Okay. A common mistake is that people don't realise that to have and to be are verbs in themselves, but we have different tenses for them. Okay. It's not always going to, my mum to be a dinner lady doesn't work, does it? So we take a different tense. My mum is a dinner lady in present tense. Okay. If 10 years ago, if we're talking about the past tense, we might say my mum was a dinner lady, looking at that to be circle at the bottom. Yeah. So this is why, because we've got our tense, our past tense, our future tense, and our present tense. Okay. And the same with to have. I have black hair. That's present tense. At this minute in time, I have black hair. If 20 years ago, before it all started going grey, we're talking about the past tense, we would say I had black hair. Okay. And if we're talking about future tense, we might say I am going to have, I will have. Okay, and that puts us in the future. These are, again, parts of the English language that can be really quite confusing, but are really quite important to let us know whether we're talking about something that's happened in the past, in the present, or in the future. And children are taught this. And the idea being that they're exposed to it and taught it quite well by speaking to them at home and in surrounding in school. So they get the speech first, a bit like we talked about in phonics. It's all about the listening and the absorbing the vocabulary. And then we can just kind of work on honing it and making it as correct as possible. Okay. And they will do this in school. They'll take time to do this in school. Adjectives. Bit of an easy one to get your head around. An adjective gives more detail to a noun. Okay. So the thing, it gives us some more detail. It might make things more interesting. It could be to make it clearer. For instance, I don't know, if I was selling something, if I was selling a dog, let's think of something a bit better. If I was selling a book, okay, and I just put in the advert book for sale, you wouldn't know anything about it. Okay. If I put in the advert there was a red book for sale, you'd know a bit more. If I put in the advert I've got a red recipe book for sale, I'm giving you more detail. A large red recipe book for sale. Yeah, it's about building it up. It's more interesting, but it gives more information. And when somebody's reading a book, particularly fiction, a story, as adults or as children, the more information that's given, the more you can picture it in your head. And that, again, is engaging and interesting, and that ties people into stories. And the choice of adjectives really, you know, they can get quite adventurous. And we start off with very simple ones with children, but we build upon those, okay? Quite often, and it's taught this way to make it easy for them to start with, they come directly before the noun. So the noisy classroom, the lively discussions, okay? But they can come after the noun. If you look at the bottom one, the corridor was clean and bright. Yeah, it doesn't have to come before, but quite often they will. And when you start off with children, you might talk about the big dog, the red rose, the slippery slide. Yeah, and the words will come together. It makes it easier to pick out. It just adds more information. It gives us more information about the thing, the noun or the pronoun. So from year 2 onwards, children are asked to expand on nouns. So they might start off with a bird and have the bird, the very grumpy bird. So the noun phrase, and the expanded noun phrase, okay? The bird is a noun phrase. It's more than one word, it gives us a phrase. And the very grumpy bird, it's not just grumpy, it's very grumpy, okay? It's giving us a bit more detail, okay? And the picture in my head changed. First of all, I had a little sort of cockatoo in my head. And then I've gone to a very grumpy bird. Oh, okay, so now I've got a grumpy looking bird. Perhaps I've got something a bit more, I don't know, like a flamingo in my head, you know, and you might not have, and it will work differently for different people, but the extra detail will just give you more opportunities. Let me show you. A little clip about noun phrases. It's quite a nice one to share with the children as well.
Looks like you've caught more than you expected there.
Help! There's a beast! Trapped on the lake! My boat is stuck!
Nice use of your nouns there. Beast, lake and boat. How about we expand those noun phrases? Expanded noun phrases tell you more about the noun. So, there's a beast could be expanded to there's a water beast.
Fine, but I'm still trapped on the lake.
Come on, you can expand that noun phrase.
Fine, I'm trapped on this beautiful lake.
There you go. Just one more noun phrase to expand. Your boat is stuck, you see.
There, are you happy now? My little boat is stuck.
Here, let me help you.
Just a nice simple one for just a nice simple video to get the children thinking about it. And obviously because it's cartoon based as well, it's sometimes I think a little bit less in your face, if you like. It's something quite nice for them to be able to take on. So noun phrases, let's have a look. He put on a hat, then he set off in the snow. Okay, so noun phrase there in red, a hat and the snow. Let's have a look at how we can expand them now. He put on a stripy woolly hat, then he set off into the blinding white snow. Okay, so we're just expanded on it. We're giving a bit more description, okay? The hat is now stripy and woolly, so it's a warm hat, I'm guessing. And he's setting off into the blinding white snow. So it's not a little bit of snow. It's blinding white. Everything's white. It's difficult to see, which kind of puts us in a different perspective again. More detail, more interesting. Helps us build a better picture in our head. Okay, let's have a look at this one together. Looking out for noun phrases. Okay. Ben and the Bear by Chris Riddle. One day Ben was bored. He put on a big winter coat. He put on a floppy hat. Let's have a look at those first two. A big winter coat, floppy hat, yeah. Then he set off into the snow. After a while he met a bear. The bear said, "What a lovely coat." Ben said, "Come home for tea." Some of the way the bear carried Ben. Some of the way Ben tried to carry the bear. The bear took Ben's coat. Ben and the bear sat down at the table. The bear poured the tea. Ben passed the sugar lumps. The bear ate them all up. They ate some bread and then they ate some honey. It's a nice story, Ben and the bear. Looking at it then into context, here are your noun phrases. The big winter coat, floppy hat. So we've got our short ones, a bear, the snow, the bear, the tea, and then we've got our longer ones, big winter coat. Okay, the sugar lumps, not the sugar, they're lumps. Okay, We don't have to expand every single one. This is quite a simple children's story. It's fine to have the bear, the coat, the fish, but just by expanding them out a little bit, you can make it really interesting, and it gives more variety. And this is just to show as well, we don't suddenly throw these at children in year 3 and say, here's a really tricky 27-page book, go and do it on your own. We can pick these things out with children, really simple stories that might be favourite stories and stories they've already experienced. And by doing that with simpler stories, where it's 3 or 4 on a page, it makes it far easier for them to be able to pick out and see, and their own experience with stories, familiar stories, will help with that. A lot of these books, as well as being lovely, the big picture books, there's a lot of theme and stuff behind them as well, and that's worth just remembering. They can be used for all sorts of grammar and punctuation as well. So in an expanded noun phrase, some words may become before and after the main noun. It's not always before. Okay, we think about the cold snow, the grumpy bird. Here we've got the very grumpy bird. Okay, we've also got some after the main noun. He's got with a broken foot. Okay, so the noun phrase is expanded. We've got the bird in the middle. We've got a bit of information about him before and a bit of information about him afterwards. Okay, thinking about the use of a in a sentence. Okay, with a, the sky was deep blue with a few clouds floating by. All they found was a beautiful flower with a circle of white petals around the centre. The boy, with a look of terror on his face, ran screaming from the giant. Okay, it adds more detail. The boy ran screaming from the giant. Haven't got quite so much, have we? All they found was a beautiful flower. Haven't got quite so much. The sky was deep blue. Okay, so it's another way of expanding out these phrases. With that is a common way of doing that. Verbs then. Adverbs give us more information about verbs. So adjectives tell us more about a noun. Adverbs tell us more about a verb, and the name perhaps helps us out a little bit more. Okay, so it tells us about the way in which the action happened. Okay, so we talk about people running, jumping, being, okay, eating. We talk about all of these things, looking, talking, and an adverb we put on to tell us a bit more. Quite often they end in ly, but not always. People sometimes fall into the trap of thinking all adverbs end in ly, and they don't. So just be aware of that. So for instance, here we've got the girl smiled. So the subject being the girl, the action, the verb being smiled. Then we've got nervously. Okay, and that's the adverb. It's given us more information about what she did. Okay, because the girl smiled, we might just think she's grinning for, say, cheese for a photo. We might say she's smiling because someone's waved at her. The girl smiled nervously. That's a bit different, isn't it? It's almost like a thin-lipped smile, maybe. Builds a picture, doesn't it? Gives more detail. Next one, the boy grinned sheepishly. Oh. When we're sheepish about something, do you know what that means? It might be we're trying to be a little bit coy. We're perhaps we know something everybody else doesn't. Perhaps we've done something we shouldn't have done. We're trying to maybe hide something, or we're just a bit unsure, a bit uncertain. But again, to grin and to smile, quite different words, aren't they? They mean the same sort of thing, the same sort of action, but they give different meanings and intonation, I think. The light shone feebly. So the light being the object, the noun. Shine is what it did, but it's feeble. Something's feeble, it's not very strong, so it might be a very weak light, might be quite faint. So we use adverbs to say how something happens, so quickly, slowly, to describe a bit more about that, where or when something happens, yesterday, tomorrow I'm going to meeting, yeah. How often something happens, daily, weekly, monthly, hourly, and to make the meaning of an adjective, adverb or verb stronger or weaker. Okay, Dave eats more slowly than his wife. Sarah walks more quickly than Fred. Okay, so it gives a comparison as well. Okay, they're really quite useful and we use them more than we realise. Good to know what they are though. So let's have a look at some wow words, some openers. Expanding vocabulary now. Okay, so first one in red, Paul walked through the forest. What could we do with that one? Let's have a look. With his arms out in front to guide himself, Paul stumbled through the dark forest in the dead of night. Okay, quite a bit different, isn't it? Paul walked through the forest. I'm just picturing a daytime scene, hands in his pockets, might be have just been walking home. Okay. With his arms out in front to guide himself, Paul stumbled through the dark forest in the dead of night. So now it's night time, it's dark, and he can't see. He's got his arms out. Very different picture. Okay. Bill ate his nice lunch. I've got Bill sat at the table with his sandwich and his cup of tea, eating his nice lunch. Slowly chewing the delicious steak, Bill looked proudly at his family seated around him in the restaurant. Okay, still eating, isn't he? But now we've got the picture. We know where they are. We know who he's with. He's looking proudly. So their adverb is to be, he's proudly looking at them, yeah, in the restaurant. Anne went into the party. Now I've got Anne as a children's entertainer with a big red nose on, face made up, with armfuls of juggling balls, going into a party. Excitedly, Anne entered the party room, which was at the back of the hotel, and was surrounded by people dancing in shrieks of laughter and singing. Okay, it's noisy, isn't it? She's at a hotel. People are dancing, people are laughing, people are singing, and Anne is excited. Okay, have a go with the last one. Pause me if you need to. Chris watched the football. Can you make that into a more exciting sentence? Have a go. Feel free to email these to me as well. You know, if you've got any ideas or you have a go at any of this and you want to share, please do. Okay then, root words. Root words stand on their own. Look at the picture, it's there to help you, okay? So root just means it can stand on its own, okay? We've got some examples there in the picture: write, act, play, tie, agree, read, joy, view. Just a few examples of main words, okay? We can make new words by adding different beginnings, prefixes, or a different end, a suffix, okay? So, for instance, correct is a root word. By adding the prefix in, so that comes before, we get incorrect, okay? By adding the suffix ly, you make a new word such as correctly, okay? What else do these prefixes and suffixes do? Why do we use them? Let's have a look at some more words. We're going to look at the word care, okay? Can you think of any prefixes and suffixes, parts of words that go on the beginning and end for care? Let's have a look. She could never be called uncaring. Un is a prefix, uncaring. Now, if we put un on the beginning, what does it do to the word? Bear that in mind. We'll get there in a minute. Be careful not to put too much garlic in the sauce. Careful. So a suffix this time because it comes at the end. Full. Careful. It was really careless of me to break the vase. Careless. Again, another suffix. Okay. They all have their own meanings. They all do different things to words, and that's why we have to be careful which ones we use. Okay. Love. I am loving my new job. So it goes on the end. We've got a suffix, ing. I'm loving my new job. The weather will be lovely on Saturday. Lovely. Another suffix coming at the end. Our new puppy was unloved in his old home. Unloved. This time it comes at the beginning, so it's a prefix, unloved. What does that prefix do? If we unlove something, does it mean we love it or we don't? Keep going. Use. He found it hard to write using his left hand. To use. Using. Got a suffix there. I find I always misuse capital letters. Misuse. We've got a prefix there. They use red paint instead of blue. Used. This time it's only one letter, but it's still a suffix. It changes the use, the tense of the word. Load. My shopping trolley was absolutely loaded. Prefix or suffix? One's a suffix. This time it goes on the end. Yeah. Remember to download the new podcast. Download this time. The prefix is down. The sign at the roadside said no loading. This time, loading, going on the end, making it a suffix. So what are suffixes? Let's split this up. A suffix is a word ending. Suffix comes at the end, okay? It's a group of letters you can add at the end of a root word. Okay, so for instance, walking, helpful, happily. If you have a look at the letters in bold, it shows you where they come at the end of a word. We've got some more examples here in the chart. Look, so we've got berry, suffix es, berries. Baby, suffix ish, we get babyish. Run, suffix we get runner. And adore, able, the suffix able makes adorable. Some of these words, as you can see, you have to drop letters. it's a bit like when we did in the punctuation, where we did plurals. Sometimes you add another letter to make it a double sound, to make it a harder sound, such as runner here. Sometimes you have to knock a letter off. Sometimes you have to change that last letter. There are some rules for that too. Again, because the English language just things a little bit trickier. So adding suffixes to words can change or add to their meaning. Okay, they show how a word will be used. So love, lover, who the ER there, that's suffix. It's the noun. It's the name of somebody, your lover. Okay, my lover. Loved, to be loved, the ED there makes it into a verb. It's something that you do. It's an action. Lovely is an adjective. It describes, yeah. So it could be a lovely tree, a lovely box, a lovely friend, yeah. So it becomes an adjective. The suffixes change the type of word. Okay, they change the word format in that regard. For example, we use the word talk in the following sentence. I was talk to Samina. What would you do with talk? Because does that make sense? And this is one of the first things we do with children. I was talk to Samina. It comes back again to the importance of being exposed to vocabulary, people talking around you, because actually, even if you can't write it, most children will know I was talk to Samina doesn't work. What's missing? And they'll be able to do it using sound and talking first. I was talking to Samina. Yeah, we need the ing. They might not be able to write it yet, but they know what it should be, and that's important. They know what it should be and the grammatic understanding. Okay, it makes better sense. I was talking to Samina. Okay. Thinking about some other talk prefixes and suffixes. Talked. I talked to Samina. That puts it into the past tense. It's already happened. Talker. She was an avid talker. Somebody who liked to talk a lot. Yeah. Some more examples of suffixes then, and there's lots of them, but these are just some of the more commonly used ones. So walked, ed, saying there, ing, er, taller, shun as in education, shun as in division, shun as in musician. Again, 3 different spellings there. Back to phonics. Fully, est as in largest, ness as in happiness, all as in accidental, airy, imaginary, able, Lee, meant as in excitement, full as in helpful, and y on its own as in easy. Okay. There are more, but that just gives you an example of some. So prefixes then, these are the ones that go at the beginning. Okay. Pre means before. Okay. For instance, previews of a movie. That's a good way to remember it. Pre means comes before. So a prefix is a group of letters we add to the front of a root word. Okay. Prefixes change the meaning of words. Okay, quite often a prefix will make it into an antonym, the opposite. Okay, antonym just means the opposite. So if I said something that you did what made me very happy, joy, happy, smiley, feel good. If I said something that you did made me unhappy by adding the prefix unhappy being the opposite, the antonym, it may actually maybe quite sad, hasn't it? Maybe look a bit glum. Okay, it's a good example here. Unkind, making unkind. Yeah, so kind, we think about someone doing something kind, we think about thoughtful, helpful, nice, pleasant. It's unkind, it's the opposite. Okay, so prefixes quite often will change the meaning as well as the purpose of a word. So here you go, let's look at some other ones. We've got unfinished. So if you finish the job, it's done. If it's unfinished, it's not done. Unpack. Yeah, so if you pack your bags to move house, you have to unpack them when you get there. It's the opposite, okay? We've got load. Let's look at load. A bit like pack, isn't it? You load up the vehicle, you have to unload it at the other end. Well, I'm feeling well. I'm unwell. Means the opposite. To do something, if you undo something, you're kind of taking it back a step, aren't you? And to be fit or to be unfit. Okay, some simple ones there. If you want to take a break, this is probably going to be a really good spot to do it. So just saying that to you, because it's quite a lot of chunks in this. If you want to take 5 minutes, please feel free to pause me now. I'll give you a moment for that. Okay, working on tenses then. So we're thinking, and we've touched on it already this session, about the past, the present, and the future. The past, what's already happened, the present, what's going on right now, and the future, what's going to happen. So that could be, you know, plans for Saturday. On Saturday, I'm going to. Later, I will. Okay. What's already happens in the past. I went, I had, I did. And what's going on now? I'm doing, okay, what you're at right now. So let's have a look at the picture there of the girl with the doll. She put the boot on. That's the past, isn't it? She put the boot on. In the present, she's putting the boot on. That's what she's doing right now. And in the future, she will put the boot on. Okay. Have a go with that picture there. We've got there some children playing football. So what's that boy doing? You might say, past tense, he kicked the ball. In present tense, he's kicking the ball. In the future tense, he will kick the ball. Yeah, it's going to happen. It just hasn't yet. Okay. Again, can be quite complicated because there are different rules, but this is just breaking it down as much as possible. Let's have a look at this picture now. Really, really lovely picture. Have a look at what's going on in the sky there. You've got your notepad. I want you to have a go at writing a past, a present, and a future sentence for this one. What can you see? Good picture to look at with children. What on earth is that in the sky? Pause me if you need to. Okay, so here's the past one for you. The sky had rained sprouts. I'm pretty sure they're sprouts. Present, if it was happening now, the sky is raining sprouts. Future, the sky will rain sprouts. That's kind of your weather forecaster standing there and telling you about that, you know. Tomorrow, the sky will rain sprouts. The sky is raining sprouts. The sky had rained sprouts. Okay, it's kind of good to use these slightly wackier, inventive pictures with children, particularly as they get older, because it just inspires them a little bit. Simple pictures with the younger ones are great, but these will just inspire children because it's different. It's a bit out of the norm, and that's a nice story to look at. Tuesday by David Weisner. Okay, then, so prepositions. Let's have a look at what a preposition is. Here we go.
Prepositions.
Prepositions are descriptive words. They describe the relationship that nouns, pronouns, or noun phrases have to other words in a sentence, such as on, under, beside. Space Cadet Carl lives in a space station. In is a preposition. It describes the relationship between lives and a space station. Unfortunately, an antenna on the space station is broken. On is a preposition. So, Carl will need to get into a spacesuit, hang on to his toolkit, exit through the airlock, climb over the solar panels, and duck under the telescope. All with a tether trailing behind him, keeping him connected to the space station. Oh, that is one tangled tether. That looks bad. Very bad. Carl, did you forget to charge the jetpack? Luckily for Carl, Selena Stardust is in the control room. She always has his back. So if you get tangled, remember, prepositions describe the relationship that nouns, pronouns, or noun phrases have to other words in a sentence. Good work, Selena. You've saved the day. For now.
Quite a nice clip again for children. It's a fun way of showing how it works. There's more on this website as well, which that link will take you to, which might be worth you having a look at. So prepositions, as the word describes, tells us something about the position. It tells us about where a thing is in relation to something else. So for instance, here we've got the juicy red apple was on the book. Okay. It might tell you when something is in relation to something else. So she refused to leave the house until the postman had been. She refused to put on her shoes until after she got on her socks. Okay, it's telling us about the order of things. So it gives us more information. Okay, it just gives us more information about what's coming and the position of that in time or in place. And here we go. It explains a bit more about the position in relation to something else. So the gentle brown dog slept beside the fluffy white rabbit. It may also tell you about the direction something's travelling in relation to something else. So quite often it gives us information about one thing related to the other. That's the main idea of it. So for instance, the gallant horseman was riding along the windy shoreline. The video on here is quite good. It's a Mr. Thorne one. And it just, again, gives you some more information and gets the children working on prepositional phrases. I'll let you have a look at that one yourselves. So Rosie's Walk is a really nice early years story, and this is a PowerPoint that goes with it, and this is really good for prepositions, simple prepositions. We taught to children with prepositional language from being very small, and again, this exposure to vocabulary. We don't know the prepositions, but it's describing more about where something is. So let's have a look at this story. It's a really good use when you start pointing these out. So Rosie's Walk by Pat Hutchins. Rosie the hen went for a walk across the yard. Here she comes. Around the pond. Who's that? Over the haydock. Past the mill. Through the gate. Uh-oh. Under the beehives. Oh dear, what's that? Oh my goodness. And got back in time for dinner. Really simple story. It's a nice picture book, and obviously you've got the fox sort of in pursuit. But thinking about the prepositions there, across, around, over, past, through, under. Yeah, let's go through these ones again so you can see them. A real simple story. She went across the yard, around the pond, over the haydock, past the mill, through the gate, under the beehives, and still got home in time for tea. Okay, so the idea there being that we're introducing to children about positions. Okay, so on, under, in, behind, in front of, and this is all really good language for children for understanding themselves as well. Again, it's vocabulary we might use with small children. Can you put the toy dog in your bed? Can you put your jumper on the chair? We use it very early on with children. We don't expose them and say we're doing prepositions. It's about their understanding. We show them, and over time they learn to do these things themselves. Putting on your shoes, brushing your teeth yourself, those sorts of things. Real simple story that can be used to back up introducing these ideas. Again, can be a really nice one to use. Okay then, some more prepositions. Before, behind, from, beneath, across, below, down, throughout, with, past, among, near, above, during, under, outside, toward, upon, over, after, through. An activity for you here. Can you write yourself 3 sentences using a preposition in each one? Feel free to pause me whilst you're doing that. Just have a go. Then we move on to look at the actual grammar, punctuation and spelling tests, the papers. So at the end of Key Stage 1, Year 2, May time, normally in Year 2, the children will have their SATs tests, their assessments basically, however the school do them. So they have a first paper is for spelling and paper 2 is questions, and there's about approximately 20 minutes. Staff can read to the children and the children have to fill it in. So these are children at the end of Year 2, so you're looking at 6, 7-year-olds. Okay, so let's look at it together. Write one word on the line below to complete the sentence in the past tense. Okay, so this is about tenses. So first of all, I'd advise read it. So they could read it to them. I blank to school during the school holidays. Okay. Oh, I go to Scotland during the school holidays. Okay, great. Is that past tense? I go. Let's think about something that happened in the past. If you went last holidays, what would you say? I went to Scotland during the school holidays. Yeah. So it's about trying to think about what could fit and then deciding which one's in the past tense. So it would be went. Let's have a look at this one. Tick the correct word to complete the sentence below. So it's a multiple choice here. So they've got 4 choices: when, if, that, because. And one of them's got to go in that gap. Let's have a read. I hope, blank, we will play musical chairs at the party. And then the way they'd be expected is to put each word in. I hope when we will play musical chairs at the party. Does that make sense? The sentence has to make sense, and this is something we teach them very early on. Does that make sense? No. Try the next one. I hope if we will play musical chairs at the party. No. I hope that we will play musical chairs at the party. That sounds good. Do you think that could work? It could, but always check them all. I hope because we will play musical chairs at the party. It's that, isn't it? Okay, and I would always encourage them to try with each of them, because you never know. Don't leave the last one, because it could be the last one. Read through them all and then choose your best fit. Okay. Plurals. So this time they're asked to put s or es to make each word a plural. And we did definitely look at this previously. This was in the spelling week. So fox, card, and match. How we're going to make them plurals. And some of you might know it by sight. Just to bring you back to the spelling week, that box that's just open there, where nouns end with sh, ch, s, or x, we add es to make plurals. They won't have that in the paper. I'm just reminding you of something we looked at. So fox ends with an x, so it will be es to make foxes. Card doesn't end with a sh, ch, s, or x, so it's just an s on the end to make cards. And match ends with a ch, so it does need an es again. Okay. And then the next one, write the words I am as one word using an apostrophe. So we're thinking, going back to punctuation last week, how are you going to make a contraction? How are you going to cut a letter out of I am to make one word? Something going to the shop soon. We want I'm. Yeah, and the apostrophe is in place of the A. The 2 words are pushed together. It's a contraction. I'm going to the shop soon. Okay. So this is the year 6 test now. So this moving at the end of primary school, basically. So these children are 10, 11 years old. And looking at some examples from here. So paper 1 has questions and paper 2 is for spelling. So here we've got fill in the gaps below using the past progressive form of the verbs in the box. So while I, something in the park, my mum, something, my sister on the swing. So while I, to play in the park, my mum, to push my sister on the swing. What do you make of that past progressive? While I was playing in the park, my mum was pushing my sister on the swing. There's our past progressive. Okay. Past progressive tense is a continuing action, something that was happening, going on at some point in the past. Okay, so she was playing. It wasn't while I played, because that suggests it just happened. Was playing. It's continuous. It goes on. It's got progression to it. Okay, it's not just once. While I was playing, there's a progression to it. Was pushing. Okay, the tense is formed with the helping to be verb. That's where was comes in. In the past tense, with the present participle of the verb with an ing ending. So riding, playing, pushing. Okay. They're taught all of this. This is just an introduction. Remember, they're taught all of this. But hopefully, if they said to you, we're doing past progressive, what is it? You could come back to these videos and it might help. Okay, so next one then. This is another question from a year 6 stats paper. Rewrite the sentence below so it begins with the adverbial. Okay, do you remember the adverbial? It adds information to a verb. That's quite simple to see with an adverbial, isn't it? Yeah. Use only the same words and remember to punctuate your answer correctly. So we need our punctuation in there. So at the moment it's we turned off the lights before we left. So we want to rewrite it so it begins with the adverbial that gives us more information about the action. So what was the action? What do you think? Just to turn off the lights, yeah. And what's the extra information about that? About the verb there? It's before we left, wasn't it? It gives us more. They did it before they left. So we're going to put that first. Before we left, we turned off the lights. Okay. got an comma in there. Before we left, we turned off the lights, punctuating the sentence correctly. Capital letter comes at the beginning, full stop at the end. Don't forget those bits because you'll lose the marks if you do. Here we've got to tick one box in each row to show whether the word before is used as a subordinating conjunction or a preposition. Okay. So we left the cinema before the end of the film. Is that a preposition or a conjunction? The train ticket is cheaper before 9 o'clock in the morning. I have to brush my teeth before I have breakfast. So let's have a look. So here's your answers then. We left the cinema before the end of the film. It's being used as a preposition. It tells us more information about the order of things, okay, about time and how things happened. The train ticket is cheaper before 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay, and I brush my teeth before I have breakfast. That one is a subordinating conjunction. Let's explain that a bit more. Okay, so a subordinating conjunction in green is a conjunction that joins, so a conjunction joins things that introduces a subordinating clause. For example, although, because it can't make sense on its own. Okay, it wouldn't make sense on its own without that clause in there. Whereas a preposition tells us more about the position in time or space. Okay, so they left the cinema before the end of the film, and the train ticket is cheap before that time in the morning. Okay, conjunctions then. So a conjunction joins. Okay, using the conjunctions below in the box to correctly complete the sentence. So you can only use each conjunction once. So make sure we're reading the instructions. So we've got or, but, and and. So let's read the sentence. You can have butter, something jam, something honey on your toast, something we don't have any marmalade. And what do you think? Take a moment. Swap them around. You can have butter or jam, but honey on your toast. No. You can have butter or jam and honey on your toast. Would you put jam with honey? So you're thinking about the comprehension, the understanding. Oh no, but I might put butter and jam. So you can have butter and jam or honey on your toast, but we don't have any marmalade. Do you agree with that one? Yeah. It's about working it out, reading it through in their heads, you know, jotting it down, try it out. Okay. Because they can get there, they do learn the rules, and when we speak it, we don't spend time working out where the full stops go because we naturally put our pauses in, our finger spaces don't need to be there. So it's just about using what they know and getting it onto paper, and grammar and punctuation really helps them to do that effectively. And again, remember, it's about being an effective communicator, whether that's in a formal setting or with friends. It's about being understood, being able to get your point across again in writing, because we don't always get the chance to talk to people first. You think about job application forms, you think about coursework for college, those sorts of things. You've got to be able to put yourself across in writing too, and to be able to understand what other people have written. So if we're all using some of these rules, it just helps to make that a bit more uniform and a bit more understandable for us. A really good book which helps with this is the Oxford Grammar Book. I've got the green one here actually. It's just really, really good because it's got sections on apostrophes, suffixes, types of suffix, types of plurals, spellings in a really simple format. And it's got pictures of things. When we're talking about commas, there's a picture of a comma. It's a really good guide. And there's also a younger one, the First Grammar Guide, Punctuation and Grammar Guide. It's really colourful. It's got an index. It's got a dictionary. It's got a lot in there. I think it retails at approximately £8 or £9. But the link there, if you follow it, will take you to Amazon, I think, to look for the best price. But I think it's definitely worth investing in if you can, because it's a good go-to. You know, if they're talking about something you're not entirely sure of the topic, if they come home talking about adverbs and you can't quite remember what it was, obviously these PowerPoints are good, but actually you could just look up, oh, I'm in grammar, a verb, I've got a noun, let's go, pronouns, okay, I remember doing those, adverb, oh, adverb, whole page on adverbs there. Just could be quite useful, certainly worth a look, I think. Some links then with some activities for you guys. Let me take you through these. Top mark site again, if you remember, you can go with the tabs. This one's, at the moment, it's got us on 7 to 11, but if you've got younger children, you can go down there. Spelling and grammar, and there's some nice games on here. There's a newspaper report, verbs and adverbs, comic book, nouns and adjectives. What are the nouns? Where are the adjectives? Verbs in space. nouns, verbs, adjectives, verbs and adverbs. There's some really nice activities on there that you can take them through. Antonyms, which we talked about, the opposite words, prefixes and suffixes, there's quite a bit on there. The second link takes you to what I consider to be 7 of the best SPAD games online. There's lots of things on here on this site that if you click, you could end up somewhere else, but there's some good games on here, and links to be able to go and play them. Adjective Detective, Queen of Comma Castle. Some good games that just help reinforce the English grammar stuff from British Council. This is really good. This is used a lot for people with English as an additional language or a second language. And there's lots of different topics, and it's a good website. I'd advise you to have a look at it anyway. But this is the grammar section, and you've got some practice on here. So you've got some grammar games that you can have a look at. So for instance, this one's about nouns, and it explains the rules for you, and there's sections for parents as well on here. And you can print things off from here as well. So you've got the ideas here. So here it says nouns. Choose the correct word to finish your sentence. Would you like something cheese and bread? Would you like any cheese and bread? Would you like a cheese and bread? Would you like some cheese and bread? And you just tick the one you think is correct and move on to the next one. And it scores you, so it gives you an idea at the end. Okay. And the last one on here is the bite-sized stuff, the BBC bite-sized stuff, and this is nice again. There's short videos like the one we looked at about prepositions, but for each one, so you've got verbs, pronouns, adverbs, passive, modal verbs, prepositions, these subordinating conjunctions we talked about. It was the noun phrases, wasn't it, that we looked at? So they're really good as well. I would also have a click around on the BBC bite-sized website, because again, there's some really good stuff on there that could be useful. And it's not really young either, so if you've got children in Key Stage 2, you're not constantly just bringing back things. I think sometimes children get a bit fed up of if they need extra help with something, or if they're revisiting something and the resources are quite young, it can get a bit samey for children. So it's always good to try and find things that might be a bit more age appropriate. So catch your breath. This week we've looked at vocabulary, lots of different types of words, openers, root words with the suffixes and prefixes, tenses, prepositions, and we've looked at where those fit into the grammar, punctuation and spelling tests that happen with the SATs. There's a lot to this, do peel it apart, do watch sections at a time, do keep it for when you need it. There's some nice resources as well that will come out to you. Again, useful games and things you can play, activities you can do. Again, some guides, so if you can't remember what it is, you got some definitions and things coming out too, so hopefully that will help you as well. But drop me a line with any questions, any feedback, anything that's been useful or not, anything you'd like more help with, please feel free to email me. Just take a moment to reflect. Where do you put yourself now? Do you know a bit more? Still not very confident? I feel like you completely understand the topic. Where would you put yourself now? And next week is actually our last week of the course, and we look at writing. Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. We think about skills, purposes for writing, progression activities, and looking at the use of dictionary and thesauruses as well, which are really useful tools for writing. Quite a bit of the topics that we've covered really do interlink. Some of the grammar stuff today, I think certainly you can see with the punctuation, the spelling, how they link up. But we try and split them up so you can look at the part you need as you go along. And also next week as well, I've got some of the end of course paperwork and things, and some more ideas and links for you to look at where you go next, and if there's anything else that you'd like to train on. Please do feel free to drop me an email with any questions, any feedback, anything at all. I hope this has been useful to you. Have a super week. Thank you.